You're listening to Brainwork Framework, a business and marketing podcast, brought to you by focus-biz.com.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining me on this episode. With me today is a very special guest who helps online business owners make their next million. Christopher Huntley, or you may have recognized him as the online English platform Kris Amerikos, is also coming out with a new book, No Bull, Just Broccoli. Christopher, thanks so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Great name, by the way. Probably my favorite name in the world, Christopher. It just has a nice ring to it. I love it. It's perfect, man.
Yeah, well, I didn't choose it, but I like it. I'm sticking with it.
We got to thank our parents. I was really excited when we got connected so I could learn more about what you're doing and where you've been. Can you kind of take me back through your entrepreneurial journey?
Yeah, so, the story could be really long, but I'm going to try to hit the highlights, right? So basically, I started an offline language school in Russia, in the Ural Mountains region, which is the one right before Siberia. It was really cold.
Okay.
And I was there for 8 years. I started that business and I didn't really know anything about anything. I had kind of heard some stuff kind of growing up, like about how a business happens. And I was like, okay, that's probably it. Kind of just did it, right? And then I turned that into an online English platform. Had to move that online. But in order for that to work, I had to learn how to market online. So learning the marketing skills, the sales skills was something that set me apart from the people that I was already familiar with, the people in my circles already. So now I was able to teach teachers how to move from offline to online. And I did that for a while. And then some of those people needed advertising help, additional marketing help. So we would come and help with funnels, tracking, ads. That's kind of how our marketing agency started. And then we started working with a wider range of people. Right now, we still have little pieces of those things around. We don't have the offline business anymore, but we have two companies now, one that is a marketing company and one that's an education company. But it was a long journey. It sounded fast that way. It's like right through it.
Suddenly you're here. But throughout your experience, what is that, like 10 years plus of experience kind of going through that journey?
Yeah, the first one was 2011.
Okay. It's about 12 years in already.
Yeah. As far as online, it was probably like 5 or 6 years after that. So 2016, I think. So that's a little shorter, but that's the part that I'm the most excited about still.
Absolutely. So how did you learn that you had a knack for marketing and sales, and how did that translate into helping clients suddenly with that project? Because it sounded like they needed you for one thing, but then they needed help with many other things.
I think it started from the offline business where there's this sense of you have to hustle, you have to get in front of people. It was more about networking, right? It was like you met this person, you dropped the right lines about what you do, and boom, you've got a good connection, right? A good lead.
Mm-hmm.
So that worked really well for my offline business in a local market, but that was definitely a small business. And moving online put me in competition with such different people and using completely different tools and rethinking everything. And it was that thing that pushed me, like this competition where I was like wanting to be somebody and wanting to do something big with not necessarily overall, but in my area of expertise, in my niche. That was where I wanted to focus when I first got started. So translating all of those marketing things back and then trying to apply what I had learned from the offline business too, because a lot of the things were the same and it made sense. But at the same time, there's so many nuances and there's so many things to learn. So that was probably one of the hardest parts of the journey, because at the same time, I moved back to the United States. So I was not only switching my entire business, everything that I was doing, but I was also switching where I lived, moving to this new economy. After 8 years in Russia, I'd just been stacking rubles for so long, and my dollars were thin. So I came back and I was like doing pretty good over there, and I had enough to like buy a car, credit history, and nothing, no employment record, no documents like back up that I did anything in my life, basically.
Literally
So,
like a fresh start. Like you're like,
yes,
I literally have nothing.
I even had like cultural barriers when I came back too.
Yeah.
I mean, I had visited in between, but briefly, there were like a lot of challenges at that point. But, I was comfortable with that because with the offline business, I did the same thing. Like when I first moved to Russia, my suitcase was lost and I really didn't have any money anyways. And I was staying with a friend. So in this little tiny apartment that's probably the size of this room, there were two guys who were renting it. One was sleeping on a sofa in the kitchen and one was sleeping on a small bed. And they had a sofa too. And so he had me and like three other guys staying there sporadically throughout like a month. And I was there for a month. So I'm just like sleeping on half of a couch for a month. And my suitcase was lost. I'm wearing his clothes to go to this like training program in Moscow that I have to go to. And I didn't have any money. So like all the other teachers who were doing this training program were going to these cool restaurants for lunch and dinner, meeting up with people, going out. And I was eating an apple for lunch and I couldn't get anything else. There's like a fruit vendor across the street who's my best friend, basically. I understood like what it was to suffer that way. So when we came back, I think it wasn't as hard for me to go through that again. I mean, my ego took a big hit, you know?
Yeah, of course, of course. But you were at a point of literally just existing. You were like, these
Yeah.
aren't even my clothes. I'm renting this space with 2 or 3 other guys. And you're like, man, wow, it is a struggle. But you knew you had to persevere through that. You're like, if I want to make changes, I have to see this through. I have to struggle for a bit. You have
Yeah.
to take that risk. And it paid off. So coming back to the United States, you were already familiar with that type of feeling. You were like, here we go again. But you
Yeah.
were like, it has to be done. You're driving your willingness to see that through. You said, okay, this is going to be worth that short-term sacrifice for a long-term gain.
Yeah. And I have to put credit where it's due. Like I see something that I think is working and I just keep doing it over and over again. That's kind of like my drive takes me there. But my wife will come to me and say, hey, I see this shortcut. Hey, did you think about this thing? And usually I'm really resistant at first, but she'll push if it's a big important thing. And so like a lot of the progress that I made, it was due to those points where it's kind of like, this is a big change that probably has to happen, but this is definitely better, And I think
Yeah.
when it comes to marketing, that's about identifying the opportunity in the market, right? Because the best marketer can be in a dying industry and not win. And the dumbest first time marketer can be in Bitcoin when it's blowing up and win in something like that, in a trend.
Yeah.
Long-term, short-term trend, whatever, a winning, there are better opportunities sometimes. And that requires you to step outside of what you know and say, I really don't know anything about this, but I know I have to learn something about it. Right.
Yes. It's a constant struggle. And the continuing education, I don't think will ever cease to exist. I mean, even
Right.
you with your 12 plus years of experience with that and just marketing in general, like you mentioned before, we have this foundation of best practices, but like you said, there's nuances and variables that are just so specific to an industry or a specific business, an individual, that it requires some sort of objective thinking, creative, outside the box. And it can be tough to let others influence what we think we already know. And they think, oh, have you tried it this way? And it's like, well, if I already, oh, wait, I guess maybe I haven't. And then you consider, you're like, okay, let me be open-minded to that. But I think as entrepreneurs, as marketers, we need to remain open-minded. The market, the industries are changing so frequently that it's impossible to stay up to date on absolutely everything.
Yeah. Yeah. And being objective with yourself is
Yeah.
important. Like you're saying, being able to tell yourself the truth, even if it hurts,
Yes.
and being able to say you're wrong. Like a lot of people out there are teaching this mindset where it's like, don't be hard on yourself. Don't get down if you made a mistake. I feel the complete opposite. I'm like, feel bad about your mistake so you don't make it again.
You're like, you're bad and you should feel bad. Like
That's
you're
what I
putting
tell
yourself
myself.
down.
Yeah.
Whatever way motivates you, that's perfect.
To attach an emotional feeling to that state, you know what I mean? To
Mhm.
try to anchor the negative emotions to that thing that I can destroy with my future actions.
Yes. Yes. That's a great way to look at it. And I think for a lot of people, the reason that they want people to look more on the positive side of things is that because they are so hard on themselves. And then they get stuck in this repetitive loop of, I don't know enough. I'm not worthy. I can't do this. And it ends up, hurting them as opposed to motivating them. But for you, it's the exact opposite. You're like, I'm going to treat myself terribly. And then that'll motivate you. Like, come on, you dumb idiot. You should have known that. And then you get motivated to do it better.
I feel like we're of course exaggerating, right?
Yeah.
But I feel like it also is connected to taking responsibility,
Yes.
especially like working in a team. It's super important. Like a lot of people talk about company culture or this stuff, like kind of a buzzword today.
Mm.
Like people taking responsibility for their own actions is just kind of the basic standard for having a good community, a good team, like just a good environment. I think that that's kind of like rule number one. So like, I want to be the first person to take responsibility for my mistake, not someone else, or
Yes.
not feel like it's an external thing. I want to have internal control over my own mistake.
Yes, 1000%. I think taking responsibility is you being truthful with yourself, because if you want to try and pass the blame to another team member, or there's circumstances that maybe you did or did not have control over, I think at the end of the day, our clients and others expect us to own up to that. And when we make mistakes, we have to own it. I think that's just good business practice. And I think that is an essential piece of building longer term relationships. How are people going to trust you if you can't own up to your own responsibilities, your own actions?
Absolutely. Because it starts with the leader.
Yes.
They're the face of the brand, maybe not outwardly to customers, but they're the face of the brand inwardly to the team. And so that has to be communicated down. And then people can feel that from having contact with your team, because a person who's taking responsibility, they're going to take responsibility in the email that they respond to. And they're going to take responsibility when they're live and they make a mistake. They're not going to try to hide it.
Yes. It's a character trait, and you can already tell who's going to do that based on their actions. And from there, you're like, okay, I can either trust this person to own up to those mistakes, or are they going to try to shift the blame? And at the end of the day, no one wants to sure, we want to pinpoint a problem, but really we're just looking for a resolution. What's going to be the least friction in order to make the client happy, ourselves, just make sure everything can move forward smoothly. One article or passage that I read as far as management and your team with communication, I thought was really important, is to share your wins, but own the losses. So when the team wins, or you as a manager, leader, share that with everybody, let them own that win. But if there's a loss or a mistake, take responsibility that as a leader, just so you can take the flack, but share the wins with everybody. Recognize the hard work. That's what motivates people. Like you said, culture is just a buzzword. And especially since COVID and leading up to and after, there's been a shift in the labor market. There's a shift in how people find value within the work that they do, or what they're willing to do for work. So it's a big shift to, try to manage and be a part of.
Absolutely. And it's really a challenge to try to catch some of those negative behaviors, mindset issues, whatever you want to call them. It's hard to catch them in like the interview process, because you want to find the person. Like you're already disposed to get this positive outcome. Like you want to look for all the good things in them, and you're kind of blind to some of the signals that are being sent, unless they're very obvious, and then it's easy. But yeah, so sometimes it can be difficult because you might get a weird feeling, but you know that you need somebody. And that can be something really hard for people who are just building a team, just interviewing people and starting out, because they might not interview enough people, or they might not consider the right qualities. They might think, oh, I need to be friends with this person, where it's more like, is this person coachable?
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
That's the biggest question I ask. And so, yeah, I've done it. I've made so many mistakes in this aspect, hiring people where I had that bad feeling, but I just didn't pay attention to it enough, or due to circumstances in the company, I made a bad hire just to get someone in the seat, but it turned out that was a waste. Like I shouldn't have ever done that.
Yep. And that's something you learn throughout the experience and the journey. And what's nice is you're willing to share that information with other people. And I think something you mentioned about, are they coachable? One great leader, supervisor that I had, when I was training and interviewing for the position, I was not really qualified, but they said, we can teach you these things. It's the attitude. It's that, are you coming in with an open mindset and being coachable? And I got the job from that. So you absolutely are right. I love those leaders and managers who see the motivation and just the attitude. That can make a great employee as opposed to trying to be friends, looking for certain qualifications. I mean, there's so many factors, again, to consider, but it's something to be mindful of.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Now, I noticed that that flashy silver YouTube plaque in the back there. What is that for? Like, what milestone?
That's for 100,000 subscribers.
100,000
Yeah.
subscribers. That's incredible. How long did it take you to reach that?
You know, it's hard to count. I don't remember on my channel what it even says the year that
Yeah.
I uploaded first is, but most of that growth happened in like a 6 to 7 year span.
Okay.
So yeah, it wasn't overnight or something like that, but there were a few videos that kind of took off. The main thing that grew it was advertising through the channel, advertising a product. And then that product paid for itself. So we were basically just getting a bunch of customers and as a fringe benefit, a lot of subscribers. And so like even during that period of time, we didn't really post a lot. It's not like we were YouTube gurus or anything. So it wasn't organic. I mean, it started off organic. And I guess if you're going to start, you need to have a little boost in the beginning just to get that initial base. So for me, that was, I just started posting some videos of me doing English lessons because that was my business. And a guy noticed me and he was like, oh, I have this big group, like 1 million people, 2 million people on Facebook and on another platform. You can talk about your YouTube channel there if you want, but I can't pay you anything. And at first I was like, do I really want to waste my time? He's not going to pay me anything. That was something I wasn't thinking of,
Uh-huh.
That was a long time ago. And eventually I tried it and then I did it a couple more times and stayed in touch with him. And so I got to use that to kind of bring in some people. It's not like from 1 million person group, you go live once and you get 1,000 people. It's like every time you go live, you get like 40. It was just like slowly adding that, but then those things are recorded there and that audience is seeing you more. So that was kind of a boost in the very beginning organically.
Nice.
Yeah, that allowed the platform, like the channel to be ready for ads to be launched from there.
Because you built that foundation and a little bit of that following that now you knew who your market was, who was interested, so you could kind of build off of that.
Yeah. Yep. So we just presented them with our product, which was basically just an online take of offline group lessons.
Nice.
And it's amazing how like there's so many technological advances, so many things changing all the time, but something so simple can just be a complete game changer. In this case, it was just being able to click a button and open a Zoom meeting. So nobody else was doing Zoom at that point. This was before COVID. And we had to teach the customers how to use Zoom, first of all. Like that
Wow.
was a challenge too. And then they would come into it was just a standard membership platform. We did it on Kajabi. And so like just a payment wall, they go in, there's just a list of like text button. Text just says the time and day and topic of the lesson, and the button just links to the lesson. So if they click the button at the right time, then the lesson's launched and they're there. And that's all we did. That was our product. And then as we scaled that, we saw like, okay, something isn't working. We had to redesign stuff, like automate stuff so that we could schedule 200 lessons at once and have it all connected between scheduling and Google Calendar and then recordings going straight into Google Drive instead of hanging out in Zoom and then somebody has to transfer them or something. Like, so we had to take away all the busy work, or try to at least.
Yes. And what an exciting time as a business owner where you're like, oh no, I'm too successful. Now I need some help. Like it gets to that point where you're like, I literally can't do this alone. And the cost to pay someone, or you kind of recognize, okay, here's what I need to improve. Here's what I need to automate. And then you're like, boom, it takes you to that next level. That's the scaling that a lot of business owners are lacking, or they're missing, or they want to achieve next.
Absolutely. Yeah. There's It's just little pieces. A lot of people think there's a whole system that they have to learn, or there's a whole, you know, core, like a university level course or something they need to learn, or some certificate they need to get. It's sometimes it's just nobody's doing this thing. If I do it, what's going to happen? Like, it's
It's
just so simple
incredible.
sometimes.
Yeah. Wow. It's truly inspiring. I mean, any way that someone can provide value to another individual, or person, business, it doesn't matter. There are a lot of people who don't know what they're doing and they need someone who knows what they're doing and help them out. And that's a huge value add. But to us, it could be something very simple. You're like, it was just a landing page with some buttons to Zoom links, but that provided value to so many individuals. They saw the value in that. You helped them out. But from there, you're like, what can I do to take this to the next level? And that's such an exciting time as an entrepreneur.
Yeah. I think we hired 30 people one month because we just had so many people joining. It was just 90 new customers a day.
Wow.
It was just exploding at one point. And it was so much fun too, because the team is celebrating like, now we're $1 million company.
That's amazing. No, it's incredible. That is truly inspiring. So now I wanted to give you an opportunity to talk about the new book that's coming out, because it's a little controversial, because you're kind of going against the grain and you're kind of either making fun of or you're poking fun at some of the traditional methods or channels or outreach that you think just aren't effective. And we need to stop doing that. Tell me more about your book and how it's going to help people, and why I should or should not feel so offended with your book.
Well, you shouldn't feel offended. I don't think it's going to offend anyone, but who knows? The name of the book is No Bull, Just Broccoli. The book gurus wish you would never read. And yeah, so in the book, we basically just break down the standard guru stuff that we see on the internet every day. And I think that the marketing space, the online marketing industry, digital marketing industry, is very familiar with this. Other audiences might not be. It might still be something new. I mean, webinars still work, funnels still work, everything still works if you do it the right way, with the right people at the right time. But like a lot of times people are selling little pieces, and the people buying it are hoping that that's going to solve all their problems. And so I think more than anything, a person who reads it is going to just find it funny, the way that just ordinary things that are happening in the marketing space, just looking at them from a slightly sarcastic point of view.
I love that. That's
Basically.
great. We need some sort of that outside the box thinking, look at something in a little more comical, humorous way.
Yeah. It's been a challenge though, because in order to sell the book, we have to do a lot of the stuff that is considered guru stuff. So what I've noticed is that most of the successful marketing projects, products that are launched, they kind of wrap around themselves, right? So like in the coaching space, the most successful coaching programs are the coaching programs about how to be a coach or how to start a coaching program. Or, right. So in marketing, it's like, I market a course about how to market, right? So it's
Yeah.
always wrapped in itself. And this is like the top tier of that industry. So like in English teaching, it was like, I go from I'll teach you to I'll teach you how to teach to I'll teach you how to start a business that teaches people. And so you kind of wrap it in itself and wrap it in its, and you get to the next level. You know what I mean? Um,
Wow.
so like that's kind of what I'm doing here, but it's tricky because you're calling out guru BS stuff in the book, on the like everywhere, but then at the same time, you have to include certain elements so that it will work, so that people will get the book and you'll be able to market it and everything like that. So that's been a challenge to navigate that. So like an example is right now how we have the landing page designed, but I don't know if this will be true in future tests or whatever, but just above the checkout area, it says, and like a lot of typical pages say like, this offer expires, blah, 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 like on Tuesday or something, right? Ours is going to say this offer expires when we stop selling it. So it's going to say stuff like that.
It's perfect because it's like, hey, we recognize that this specific thing is an element people expect within, a landing page, a checkout page or whatever. And you're like, we're going to poke fun at it. Like we're still going to have it, but we're going to make fun of it while we're
Exactly.
doing it. Like, that's perfect.
Like, I thought about taking it out, and that was because I have a trusted guy who is very, very attention oriented, going through everything I'm doing and giving me lots of criticism, and he's not afraid to do that, and that's great that I have that guy. So he pointed that out immediately and was like, "That has to go. Like, you can't like the book. Come on, man." And like, he even read the book, the first draft, and he was like, "This part sounds weird. It sounds way too guru for a not a guru book." So
Feedback is so valuable. You have to be open to that criticism as well and say,
right.
okay, let me look at this in a new way and try to present the information in a different way.
Yeah, coming back to our discussion about being objective with yourself and letting your ego take the hit to get to
Yeah.
the truth. Um, yeah, and it's tough to find those people because so many times, if you're the boss, if you're the leader, if you're the CEO or whoever, people want to be yes men. They just
Hmm.
want to just make you happy, and sometimes it's really hard to get it through to people that I don't want you to make me happy. I want you to get the result. And then on top of that, I want you to get better so that we can work together on more things, right?
You're like, okay, I need you to be critical about this. I can't just have you say, yes, it's great, because that's not good for everyone as a whole. Everyone needs to learn more, grow more.
Yeah.
And in turn, that's going to make that a better product, and it's probably going to sell more. So it's good for everyone around.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, we decided to keep the little sarcastic remark because I feel, like you said, people expect it. Like, especially this audience. They expect it. They've seen it a million times. And I think that it'll brighten their day a little bit when they see that it says something that logically is like, okay,
No, that's great. I'm sure it'll be a fantastic read just because you're combining all those years of experience. You've helped businesses grow. I mean, impressively. You've done like 25% in 30 days, 30%, 37 in 30 days, 91% growth in 90 days. That's impressive. So I'm sure that book is going to contain the tips and tricks that people need to hear, not that they want to hear.
yes, I think so. I think so. I got the whole idea of the broccoli thing from like I wrote kind of a sample text using this style and tone in the copy. And it was just like a random like blog, like random text, just completely random. And
Uh-huh.
there was one line in it that was like it was basically about like I'm gonna give you the truth, right? It was this whole concept. And there was one line that was like, I'm the guy who comes to a pizza party and brings broccoli. I'm the guy who spills the truth instead of the punch. And so I really liked the broccoli line and I thought, I'll keep that.
That's brilliant. And it really piqued my curiosity about the broccoli thing. And I was trying to think to myself, like from having copywriting experience, and I was like, what's the meaning behind the broccoli? To me, I was like, okay, people know that it's good for you, but do people really want to consume it? And I was like,
Exactly.
this is the book that they need, not the one that they
Right.
were expecting or wanting. It may not give them the warm, fuzzy feelings inside, but if you're open to opinions and critically thinking and taking an objective look at yourself and what you're doing, this is going to be the book for you. This is what you want.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's incredible. I'm so excited for that. What are some tips for people who are trying to make it to that first million? Because it seems like you help people go from their first million to their next million.
So that's what our marketing agency is focused on.
Nice.
You'll see my social stuff change very soon when we launch the book, and so it'll not be so focused on that.
Yeah.
But yeah, typically we want to work with the companies in our agency that are doing 25,000 a month or more,
Mhm.
and so that's kind of around the time you're getting your first million. And I kind of had that idea because I was working with a coach to develop a higher ticket offer, and we were going through stuff, and I remembered a call that I had an interview with a guy when I first hit a million. I wanted to hire a CMO, and I knew a guy, and I went to him and we talked about it, and I had that call recorded, and I went back and reviewed it. And I realized people at a million, when they get their first million, they want to hire a CMO. Like the thing that I did those years ago is exactly what people like that do.
Mhm.
And so like that's a pain point because you think you need this thing and it costs a lot. Plus, that guy doesn't press any of the buttons himself, usually. And so they want like a giant salary, a big bonus, and they have to have a whole team of people who actually press the buttons. And so I felt like, okay, there's probably other people who have run into that wall. And so that's kind of how we designed the agency's kind of position in the beginning was we're going to help people who are kind of in this position, but for a much different price structure.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Because a lot of times business owners are just kind of following the herd. They are getting their ideas from what they've seen other people do. And sometimes it's not always the best course of action for you as a business.
Yeah.
So for someone like you to come in and steer the ship for them and say, I know you guys were thinking you wanted this, but here's what you actually need. Again, it's kind of coming back to the no bull, just broccoli. Like, I'm going to tell you
Yeah.
exactly what you need to hear, not what you want to hear. And I think that's so crucial for creating real growth within a business.
Just talking to you today has helped me realize this on a deeper level, because maybe this is also a quality that I internalized coming back from Russia. When I first came back from Russia, I told you there was this cultural barrier that I felt, even though I'm American, I felt this. And my friends and family would tell me, like, you're too direct, you sound rude. And because I would not like, there's just, I don't know, like in the mentality over there in Russia was kind of like a lot less fluff, a lot less small talk, a lot less of that, very direct. And
Yes.
I really liked that because it's more easy, it's more easy. I'm an English teacher, right? Um, it's so much easier to predict behavior when everyone follows the standards.
hmm
And the Western societies, like the West in general, has such a focus on individualism and on everybody has to be represented. And these things that I think are really good in a trend towards towards having, a global community. I think it's good. But like on a human level, sometimes it's so nice to have a person just be very direct with you and not beat around the bush and not smile to your face and then do something else. And you know what I
Yes.
mean? So I had to, don't get me wrong, people over there are fake in their own way. So, and anyone who's Russian who's listening, they know what I'm talking about. We're both fake in our own way. But yeah, so I think I carried that quality over somehow. And so like dealing with people on my team, we talked about like being hard on myself. Like I just gave an example of that by making a mistake, right? So
Yep.
you laid those steps out in front of me today. And there's the book.
And there it is. But it's really important for us to have these conversations because it's not until we kind of put that out there, just have these conversations that we're like, okay, wow, this really solidifies my offer and my confidence in what I'm offering, or I need to rethink my strategy a little bit and take a different approach. But I think that's really important. And I am 100% in agreement with the cultural differences between being direct or kind of, skirting around the issue. And it's a different style of communication and how we present facts and try to bring that up. But something important with that is I love being direct. Let's take out the fluff. Just give it to me straight. Of course, we can have our pleasantries. We can still smile, but hey, let's get down to business and just be real open and honest here. I think that's how real businesses kind of grow from there.
Yeah.
You just have to take it.
That's effective communication.
It is effective communication. I love it. So we're almost close to the ending time of our podcast here. Just wanted to give you an opportunity to either ask if there's any tips or tricks you wanted to share with our audience. And additionally, we'd love to know where people can find out more about you and get your book.
Yeah. So I'm Christopher Huntley. You can pretty much find me on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, doing, different businesses. But the book is No Bull, Just Broccoli. You can find it at nobull.justbroccoli.com. And that was I'm glad I got that domain. And yeah, man, as far as tips and tricks, I want to leave off with something useful. So I was thinking about that before I came here, like, what do I really have to share, So looking back, there was like one concept that I think really held me back by not understanding it, which is like, if you have one product, it's going to be really hard to have a business. And I think that's because the initial marketing courses that I took were all about one high ticket offer. That's all you need, and push everybody to that. But in the space that I was in when I was coming up, it was the complete opposite. Who's going to buy an English course for $5,000, $10,000? I mean, a company maybe, but so like it was different. And then also most of the information that they were selling could be delivered through online courses, whereas you learn a language by practicing the language. So if you watch a bunch of videos, you're going to end up with no result. So, I mean, you can get something from it, but the big goal of that whole industry is to be able to speak. Noticing those things, going through those initial marketing courses and learning that stuff, I tried to apply that in my own way. And I always, in the beginning, had one product that I was leading with. It was just like, this product does all the work. But you really need, like, sure, one product can do all the work, right? And we're not talking about every industry. It's very specific, right? If we're selling insurance, we're selling, not even insurance, they have a lot of offers, but I mean, if we're selling something very high ticket, then maybe one offer is good. I know a guy who sells like jet engines. So like one jet engine, that's a good business. So yeah, there's 3 jobs that need to be done, and it's hard for one product to do them. The jobs that have to be done are acquisition, get the customer, liquidation, pay for the marketing and ads, and profit. And usually that's going to be more than one product.
Right. You can't do just one because the other 2 pieces rely heavily on each other throughout the customer's journey. I mean, sure, you can generate the leads, but if they don't have a great landing page or offer or ad copy that really get people to take that next step, what good is a bunch of leads? You need to acquire them. You need to be able to turn a profit from that. And I think just like you said, you can have one offer, but it has to include those 3 things. But sometimes in businesses, they're only missing 1 or 2 pieces, right? Like you don't want to rework something that they've done well already, just about finding the tweaks and the instances you can be effective. But like you said, the difference between one product, multiple products, high ticket, lower ticket, I think there was that mismatch. You're like, I don't think this market for what I want to offer is interested in buying something like that. And I found similar instances like that myself. I've been told podcasts are a great way to get higher level business owners to have conversations. And then I realized, okay, for some instances, that's a great marketing tool. But then there were others that I was like, okay, I'm trying to sell this, but that podcast just doesn't light up. I wasn't getting interest from that. So I was like, okay, just as you realized this isn't good for this target market, I realized the same thing. And I said, okay, let's rethink this, try something new. But I think as marketers, we're always trying to test things and tweak things. They're like, okay, can we increase the conversion rates here? Can this be a little bit better? And a lot of the time there is trial and error. We're bringing a lot of experience, a lot of education to the table. But again, trial and error, we have to test some things out. But kudos to you for being able to take a step back and realize this isn't working. I need to switch something up. Again, just objectively looking at yourself again and saying, okay, maybe I'm the problem here. What can I fix?
Yeah. Yeah. It's tough sometimes, but I also see a lot of times agencies will get on a sales call with a potential client, and the person doesn't have all the pieces lined up. And the person believes that if they just add in advertising, if they just add in SEO, if they just add in some magic, that everything's going to work. And it's a shame because that person doesn't really understand what works. And they think that they're looking for that one secret key to unlock it.
Yes.
And too many times agencies or salespeople are ready to sell the thing to the person that they absolutely don't need, take a big retainer for 6 months or something, and then be like, hey, it's not working out, and then go get their competitor.
Mm-hmm. Uh-huh. It's very unfortunate because the business owner is looking to the marketer and the agency as having their best interest in mind. So when they say, oh, we just think you need ads, we think you need SEO, you are their trusted advisor. If you're not making the right recommendations or actually following through on the fulfillment side of things, that's not a good agency. I don't think any business could last long term from that. And like you said, once that retainer runs out, they go out to the competitor. So like, obviously they didn't have your best interests at heart and they're focusing on the wrong thing. They're about the money as opposed to results. And like you said, it's a shame.
Yeah. Yep. But we don't want to end on a sad note.
No, we want to be happy and cheery. So excited for your book, for all the experience, the things that you're sharing. Do you have a price point set on that? Where can people find that? Is it Amazon sort of thing?
Yeah, it's going to be through our website, but also through Amazon, probably about $27.
Yeah.
There's a few courses that I've made that go with the book. So one of those courses is about how we got 39 million views on our YouTube ad. And then another one kind of explains this business that we've been talking about, the English online platform that did more than $2 million in sales. So yeah, I kind of go through those things in those mini courses, and that comes with the book.
That's a great value add because after I'm done reading a book, I want to take action. And sometimes I'm still just as lost as I was before. Like I have this good information. How do I apply it? So I feel like the courses are that next step follow through for you to say, okay, what's the next step? And it's specific to, okay, am I planning on going YouTube strategy? I'm going to watch the 39 million views. I'm going to, so it's like, it offers enough variety. You have enough experience in many different areas that this can be beneficial for any business owner, anyone who's looking to take that next step, who isn't interested in the next best book, the next best video, because we're all hungry for knowledge. We need to learn that. And more importantly than just the knowledge, it's taking action after you learn all those things. I'm guilty of that myself. It's time to take action, people. Go ahead.
Let's do it.
Go to nobullJustBroccoli.com. Make sure you check out Christopher Huntley, LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, wherever you can find him. Christopher, thank you so much for joining me. I'm looking forward to our next chat. Let's keep the conversation open. Let me know how the book goes, your next $1 million goes. I'm probably going to hear from you in the 2 weeks, and you're like, "Hey man, we just hit another $1 million." And I'm like, "Congrats, that's amazing, man."
I think it'll be a little bit longer than 2 weeks, but I really appreciate the enthusiasm.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Christopher,
Awesome.
Thanks so much for your time, man.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and we'll definitely keep in touch. Thanks so much for your time.
All right, man. Take care.
You too. Thank you.
Bye.